Hello, this is HookedByHappenstance. I'm Kendra, and I guess I'm back, at least for the moment. So it's a very bright day. It is January 8th, I believe, which is a Wednesday here in Kansas. And while people like to complain about the darkness of winter and how it gets dark so early, one of the things I find incredibly annoying and difficult about winter is the intense bright sun that we get in the hours when we do have sun here. And many of our windows are covered because of that fact, but also many of them are open because then we have natural light and it's good and warm and, you know, all the things. But it is not good for filming in. And it is just, it's a little intense. But, you know, so are a lot of things in life. So, the reason I am here today is because I have not filmed a video in a very long time. Longer than I realized, actually, when I kind of went back and looked. And I woke up this morning with an idea. An idea that just started gnawing at me that I should film it. And that's kind of how all of my favorite videos, series, etc. that I have made have kind of come about. I suddenly get an idea, and then it happens, and then hopefully it continues happening, you know, in perpetuity. Which is what happened with Sunday Sunrise videos, which was my solution to New Year's resolutions in the past. Now you may have noticed that those just like stopped without notice. A lot of things in my life just kind of stopped without notice. I've been having a particularly difficult go of things lately. No really good, like, triggering reason why, though I'm sure I can enumerate a long list of potential triggering reasons over time. But things have not been great. And one of the things that has fallen by the wayside with the not greatness of things and the way that I've been feeling is filming videos has been particularly difficult, makes me particularly anxious and like all up in my head about it, which is dumb and like something that I should just avoid feeling because I like the process of filming them, I like the process of editing them and all the things, so I just need to do them when I feel like I need to do them. One of the things that I am thinking to help with that process is trying to eliminate alliterative titles when it comes to my video series. I find it useful for like my mental structuring of my channel to make certain types of videos and then like series them. I don't know. It works for me because then I can think I'm making this particular kind of video and then I do whatever. And alliteration makes my heart happy. But making alliterative titles that are connected to days of the week are guilt generating. There you go, 2 G's. Guilt generating because frequently it doesn't work in my schedule. It does not work with my energy levels and it just doesn't necessarily work with the crafting that I'm doing as well as the message or like thought that I'm having and I want to share. So, I thought that in lieu of doing Sunday Sunrises, I would start this new idea, which is called creative considerations. So, I thought that we would discuss what those words mean because you know I love a good definition. And then I can give you some thoughts and considerations that I have had, and I'll explain as we go along. Now, I recognize that why should you care what I am thinking and why should you potentially feel motivated or feel anything about my crafty plan, progress, whatever, especially if I am not necessarily like winning at life currently. And I think I've referenced this in a video before, but I once talked to a friend who wanted to make a video channel on a topic. And one of the things that was holding them back was this concept that, again, they didn't feel like they were necessarily like winning at life. And why should anybody like hold them up as some sort of like, I don't know, model of what to do if their end result was not ideal. personally, I think those are the people who you should most listen to. Like, I like own voices stories in the books that I read. I like, even in, like, I've been reading a lot of nonfiction, like self-help, self-improvement, whatever, psychology, sociology books and stuff. And the ones that are from people who are doing the things that they are talking about because they personally needed those things to benefit are the stories I like the best, because I feel like those people are speaking from a place of authenticity, they're speaking from a place of experience, and I think they have more insightful anecdotes, and just seeing the way that they kind of tease out ideas in their minds and how they implement those is more useful to me, because those are the kind of skills that I'm trying to work on. So, I'm trying to get over the idea that, like, why should I share the things I'm doing if what I'm doing isn't working? But I don't necessarily think that the things I'm doing are not working. I think lots of the things that I'm doing and implement and try work, and I take little bits and pieces that have worked along the way, and I try and continue those things, and I try and find the things that are not helping and actually being self-defeating or causing me more problems. I try to get rid of those things. So I think that is the best way to move forward, and I'm just trying to get myself on board with the fact that it's okay to share the things, even if the things are not perfect, because nothing I do is going to be perfect. That's all right, right? It's okay. So, anyways, let's discuss the topic and the title, creative considerations. So, the first thing that I was thinking on was creativity, right? Like, that's what I do. And I don't think that it's good to, like, pigeonhole that something is, like, crochet or even just fiber arts related, because I do a lot of other things. My kind of whole, I don't know, way of being is all about this idea of embracing, like, a handmade, so my vlog channel is called Happenstance Place. The idea being that you're in a place because of a number of things that have happened, and this is where you happen to be, and then you kind of follow those things that have been dropped in your way. The breadcrumbs you come across, you're like, whoa, didn't know I was following that trail of reasoning or that trail of life or whatever, and it will potentially lead you to something really cool and neat. And most of the things in my life that have turned out to be really cool and neat happened by complete happenstance. Like, I just kind of stumbled upon them. Obviously, there was a number of events that led to me stumbling upon them, but they weren't necessarily, like, concrete plans. Like, I planned this goal, and then it happens. I planned a goal, and somewhere in my trying to reach it, I stumbled off the path and into something usually better and more fulfilling. So, my vlog channel's, like, tagline is about having a handmade home life, and I think that it's important to not only, like, have handmade craft items, which are frequently viewed as things of, like, a lesser value, like they're optional for a lot of people, and for me, I don't necessarily feel like that making is optional, even though that's really, really inconvenient sometimes. For it to be fulfilling for me, I usually have to have had my hands, my thoughts, my consideration into it for the item, activity, whatever, to be fulfilling. So, I think the same thing can be applied to all of my creative endeavors. That's why I like the idea of creativity too, because I don't think that it's all about fiber arts. I don't even think it's all about crafting. I sometimes have the problem with the concept of crafting versus art, like why we'd feel the need to separate those two. I was even looking up the definition, was looking up these kind of terms of crafty, and a bunch of things about being crafty refer more to, like, being, like, you know, like a fox, like you're being very, like, full of guile and just trying to be kind of, like, smarmy in what you're doing. Like, there's that aspect to it, which I kind of feel like that happens sometimes when it comes to the idea of crafting. There's this idea that crafts are kind of like tacky, like they're the things you make at summer camp. Charlotte Mason calls it twaddle, like they're just junk that you're doing. And I don't think that that is true when it comes to crafting. I think that there is skill to crafting. I think there is purpose to it. Even if that purpose is not the finished product, I think that a lot of times it gives you a focus where while you're working on the craft, your brain and your heart and whatever are doing other important work, and you need something to focus on to get all of like your attention on the important stuff, and it gives you something to do as like that middle thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but I do see a value in that crafty idea. And then the idea of art being like this highfalutin thing that should be like you have to strive for, it has rules, and there's good art and bad art, and when people look at it they can say this is or is not art. I don't know, I have a problem with that whole concept. I think art makes you feel things. I think that is the important thing about it, is that art has like an emotional reaction of some sort. And I think that lots of the things that are viewed as crafts make people have an emotional reaction. How often do you scan your Instagram feed and see what all of your fibery peeps have been up to, and you feel an emotional reaction? You see the thing that somebody made for a new family member, and you can like feel love when you're looking at it. Or sometimes I will look at things that I have made or that other people made, and I can just feel desperation. Like I'm looking at it and I can sense whatever is going on. And I think that we probably find more of those emotional components when we look at our own work than we look at other people's. But, I mean, obviously it's there on both sides. So, I wanted to go more with the idea of creativity because overall, for me, it's not just about crafts. It's not just about art. It's not just about, like, making in an extracurricular sense. Like, it's really important to me to be creative in all areas of life. Like, I'm just trying to be creative about the way I think about things. I try to think outside the box. I try to think not necessarily in a conformist way, like just because other people do or do not agree with an idea does not necessarily weigh into whether or not I will agree or disagree with an idea. I frequently do things that are like kind of counter-normative. Sometimes I think people view it as like an intentional choice. Like, you're doing this simply to be contrary. And I promise I'm not. I'm just trying to weigh the pros and cons and whatever of things, and then, not react, but just kind of make my choices based on what feels and seems right to me rationally and logically. So, I settled on the term creative. That was a really long and circuitous way to get on that. But according to the dictionary, I guess dictionary.com, the one that Google pops out. I will frequently read multiple definitions of words from different sources, which I think is the best way to really find a definition, is to like crowdsource it. I like to read like Merriam-Webster's, dictionary.com. Like, I just like to take all of them and then take the one that most resonates with me with the words that they use to describe it. Because overall, all of these dictionaries use similar terminology to define words, right? Because, hello, that's what definitions mean. But the specific terms they use are slightly different. And I will sometimes like delve into those little words. When I was in 4th grade, one of my favorite things to do during like our sustained silent reading time was to read the dictionary. And I was not the only one. I had several friends. We would do this, and we would start with one word, and you'd read it, and then you'd look, and there'd be like a definition, and you'd then look up like one of the words from the definition, and you can easily spend half an hour like just rabbit trailing through the dictionary, and along the way, the other words and concepts that you pick up are just so fun. Now, it is a little harder to do that in a digital format, but it is easier to compare all of the things kind of across the board. So that is nice. You can also play the same game with the thesaurus, by the way, which is fun to go around and see how many words you can loop before you can only get back to your starting word. That's a fun little game. I know. My definitions of fun can sometimes seem a little strange. But anyways, creative, according to this definition, is an adjective relating to or involving the imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. Or the noun, meaning a person who is creative, typically in a professional context. So I feel like creativity and creative focus very much applies to my life and my kind of list of things that I want to be referencing throughout the week. Now, let's discuss the word consideration, because I'm going to assume it is a term that many of you have not considered deeply before, because I don't think that I really have till I sat down and I spent like half an hour today thinking about this term and just like mulling it over, and I really like it, I think. So, according to Merriam-Webster in this case, consideration is a noun, the first definition being continuous and careful thought, which I think is so perfect when it comes to crafting, especially fiber crafting. How often can you sit down and spend, an hour or 5, depending on your options, just having this like long-running inner dialogue while you're working on a project? All of the things that you are taking under consideration and absorbing and just like chewing on while you're working on a project, that continuous and careful thought. The second definition is taken in 2 parts. The first, a matter weighted or taken into account when formulating an opinion or plan. So again, the things that I'm going to talk about in these creative considerations videos are the individual items and such that I am planning on taking into consideration when forming my plan for the week or whatever period of time it may be. And also the second part of that is taking into account. So things that I want to be keeping kind of at the forefront of my mind, or even if they're things that are backburnered, things that I want to kind of be playing with in those little pockets of time mentally and physically that kind of pop up. The third definition is thoughtful and sympathetic regard, which I think is really important. I look at this and I think the first instinct is to think of having thoughtful and sympathetic regard to other people, like that it's outward facing. When I think of being considerate, it usually means being polite and putting others first and just giving of yourself, right? But I think that can also be turned on its head a little and thinking about taking consideration for yourself, which I think a lot of us don't necessarily do enough of. And I've been thinking a lot on the idea of what makes something selfish and self-centered and what makes it good and healthy. Because not everything about you can be forward-looking. It's very important to turn some of that consideration in on yourself. This is a whole oxygen mask concept. If you run out of oxygen or fuel to make it, how can you even help all those other outward-facing components of your life? You have to do some internal garden tending, right? So I think it's important to be thoughtful and sympathetic of all people, yourself included. The next definition, the fourth one, is an opinion obtained by reflection. And I think that it is important in kind of these, not really to-do lists, but kind of crafty accountability, chunks of things, that it's important to reflect on what you're making, why you're making it. Are you making it because you started making it and now you feel indebted to a project? Because that is just dumb. If you no longer want the thing in your life, make the thing go away. You, and in this case I mean me, have the power to frog things. You have the power to give them away. You have the power to make them disappear if they are no longer serving you. And having something just sit on your list of things that needs to be finished because you started it when you no longer really have a connection to it or feel that it's going to serve you moving forward, it doesn't make any sense. And so I think it's important to keep looking at these lists of things and these piles of things and like all of the whips that we have going in our life in various creative ways, and decide like what needs to be pruned. Like we just need to get rid of the things that are not, you know, they're not alive, basically. It's kind of like pruning a bush. You need to go and find the parts that are sucking the energy out of the rest of the plant, and you need to just get rid of them and accept it and move on, and it will make the whole thing more healthy, and that is good. And those are kind of the last that like really apply. There's a few more. There's some legal definitions and stuff, but that's the idea of consideration. So what am I thinking moving forward after my long explanation of creative considerations? Well, I want to go back to having like an on the hook list, because I found that really useful. I will put in here a video of this is what the area that my on the hook list used to be. This is what it now looks like. I have taken it over with other things that I think like I kind of thought were more important, but I realized that they're not. And it almost, the wall is now full of stuff, so it has become overwhelming. And the nice thing when I had all my little cards and stuff with the names of the top, like the projects I was working on and the dates I started them and stuff, was that I could have a really easy visual representation of progress, which is sometimes hard, especially when you're taking on larger projects. And I tend to be falling right now into liking to make larger things like garments and such. It was much easier when I was making like amigurumi. I could bust those out so fast, even larger ones, that they didn't like sit around. So there wasn't that same, I don't know, abundance of stuff just like hanging over me. So I want to clear this wall of all the other things and in a way clear some space for some more creative endeavors, especially because I am finding crocheting and stuff more exciting right now again, which is nice because it lost some luster. I was still doing it. I just wasn't doing it in the same way, which is why I was having a hard time sharing it, because it's hard to share something with like excitement when you don't feel excited about it. And I only want to share things authentically. So if I don't authentically care, I can't bring it to the table because that just seems wrong. So I just don't. What I have been doing the last week or two is clearing this bar behind me. I don't know if you can see it. The top one has my reading shawls for the year, which there is one that I have not made a video about yet, but I finished. And this blue bag over here contains the final one for 2019 books. So I will very shortly here have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. One of them has fallen down, but I have made 5 yarn tail shawls from all of the books that I read in 2019. And so I have been going through these bags that are hanging on the bottom rod here and finishing projects, frogging projects, reimagining projects, just kind of getting it down so that they're only things that I still currently feel like I want to put energy into them, and that I feel like will give me something back currently. So I'm working on that. I'm working on a lot of things. So that is where I'm at. Hopefully the next time that I make one of these, which I'm not going to pin it to a certain day of the week, because like I say, that's just guilt generating. It means that Sunday would come or Saturday would come, or, you know, the next week would happen and I would realize I hadn't made a Sunday sunrise, and it would just, I don't know, it would weigh on me. Even though this is nobody's pressure but my own. But the pressure is there nonetheless. So instead, I like the idea of leaving this open for creative considerations. And also, it gives me the freedom to let those considerations change kind of at a moment's notice, which is how my mood and energy levels and all the things change. I honestly cannot tell you what state I'm going to be in tomorrow or this afternoon. Who knows? So I don't know that I can fully commit to, honestly, a plan for what I think I'm capable of completing in that time. So I then have the options to kind of share these ideas with you as I come along you know, as they come along down the pike, and as I complete things and consider the next things and all of that. I also assume that I will use this as a space to talk about, like, when I get that urge to start a new project, what it is about it that made me want to do it. Because I find the thing that, like, ignites my creativity, I haven't quite put my finger on what those things are all specifically, but I think that's an interesting thing to kind of explore. Because I guess if you know what things can ignite your creativity, having that kind of list of ignition sources means that you have a tool in your toolbox to reignite it yourself if you need to. So I'll be focusing on those things. And I'll just be rambling at you a bunch about words and thoughts and all the things that float around my head when I do these things. And hopefully to somebody, some of this resonates. I understand that not all of it will. And I don't know that that even really matters. What matters at this point is that I'm making the things and I'm making the effort. And making is where my passion ultimately probably lies. And so I will release it into the world, and the world will react however it does. I can't control other people's reactions to me or the way other people think. I can only control myself. See, doesn't that sound good and therapeutic? Doesn't that sound like I've been filling my mind full of all the good gobbledygook? I mean, if it's going to be full of gobbledygook, it might as well be good, right? So, anyways, I'm going to go and work on clearing space for myself on this wall. Clearing the things that are currently covering it, which I'm sure I could find a bunch of really interesting and ironic ties into the things that have amassed on the wall of my productivity. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, there's kind of a deep pile of things, and they all, yeah, it's a thing. But I'm gonna go clear that stuff off and make some space for some upcoming things and some upcoming considerations and places I want to put my energy and thoughts, and hopefully we'll gain some insight and some benefits from doing those things. So I'm going to go work on that, and I will make another video here in the not too distant future, and there will also be videos eventually coming out talking about that shawl that I finished but didn't talk about the books for, and the one that's almost done. I think I'm just going to do long videos where I just talk about all the books in a row, because I read some really amazing books in 2019, and I am looking forward to reading more really amazing books in 2020. I feel like I already read something. Have I read something in 2020 that I gave 5 stars? No, I haven't. I read something right at the end of 2019 that I did, though. So, those are all coming. There'll be more book stuff, more creative stuff. If you are interested in more of my daily lifey stuff, I will probably be putting out more vlogs, daily-ish vlogging, I don't know. All those things I was talking about authenticity and putting things out there and not being able to control reactions and all that stuff. I mean, that's all real on this kind of channel that's all about crafts and kind of zoned in on my fiber arts, but probably pertains even more heavily to my vlogging channel about my personal life, because, I don't know, it's personal. And so, yeah, in it being personal, it's mostly about how I react and am a part of my home life, because I don't include my children. Occasionally my husband's around. I don't know. It's just stuff about how I do things. So if you're interested in that, that is an option. Happenstance Place, if that's a thing you're into. They tend to come out in, like, chunks. Both chunks of filming and chunks of editing, because, I don't know, sometimes I don't like looking at my face on the computer, and some days I'm like, yes, let's get it all done and make it all something out in the world. So, alright, hope that you will give some consideration to your creative choices and be considerate of yourself in that process, because if you aren't considerate of yourself, chances are nobody else will be. And I will see you next time. Bye!